Morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. I'm Pastor John Woodin, and this week we're going to be talking about hearing God's voice. I think it's very important in this year, and in fact, the prophetic word given to our church for the year is to really hone in on God's voice. In fact, he really mentioned it several times, my voice, and I think it's critical in these end days that we listen to the voice of the Lord. John 10 says this, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. Neither shall anyone snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one." So, we showed a little film, which we cannot show on this program because of copyright situation, but it was just a short little film where the sheep were grazing in the meadow, and two people tried to call them the way the shepherd calls them, and they didn't even pick up their heads and look at him. But when the shepherd stepped to the fence and started calling them, little heads go up all over the sheep field, and then they start to come running towards him because they know the voice of the shepherd. And the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Yet they will by no means follow a stranger. And that was just so interesting that they wouldn't just come up for anyone. It was only the shepherd. And then Jesus tells us, in John 10, I am the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd. So in other words, his sheep know his voice. If you remember in 1 Samuel chapter 3, Samuel is turned over. He is dedicated to the Lord. And then he is turned over to the temple to serve the high priest. And he's serving Eli. Well, all of a sudden, he hears a voice that keeps calling him, Samuel, Samuel. And he keeps going back to Eli and saying, "Yes, sir, what do you want?" And he said, "No, I didn't call you." And then Eli knows that it's the voice of the Lord. And he said, "Just tell him when he calls you, speak, for your servant hears." And what's great is that the Bible tells us that there was very little voice of the Lord in those days. And it says, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days, and there was no widespread revelation. Wow, you could say that about today. So I'm going to encourage you. We're going to keep talking about hearing God's voice, and then it's going to be an essential run this week to learn how to hear from God. God bless you, and we'll see you again next time.